Hello.
Hey, Jazzy, it's GFF.
What's up?
Wondering, have you seen these prices for the 3D Blu-ray of Happy Family? I mean, I've never heard of this movie before until I started seeing these crazy auctions for it.
Mr. Fun, do not pay the ransom for Happy Family.
I can tell you I don't have money, but what I do have are a very particular set of skills. I will look for you.
Your price is too high.
It wasn't personal.
It was all personal to me.
Package from Jazz Sonic. Looks a little bloody. Guess someone cut themselves. Hope it wasn't bad. All right. Let's have a look at what all the fuss is about. Happy Family, also known as Monster Family in some areas. This disc is region-free if you can get your hands on it. It's based on a children's book, also called Happy Family. The premise involves a curse, but with the caveat that a person must be unhappy for it to take effect. And something about that rings very true. Actually reminds me of a horror movie where a haunting is faked because the victims must believe in the thing before it can actually be made to manifest. Almost like a reverse Scooby-Doo. For a 3D fan, this movie is kind of like a buffet. We get some enjoyable particle effects, including several great snow globe moments. Always something fascinating about seeing things suspended in midair. Additionally, we get things that sparkle, float, shine. In both air and water, there might be a stereo example of every type of floaty particle there is. Also, some wonderful hologram shots. This over-the-top classroom presentation brought me back to visiting the planetarium in school, only I wished it looked this good. Here we have some laser jail bars that are dazzling to see. I don't know if it was intentional, but the walls in the scene are kept fairly plain, which I felt kind of helped show off the effect without distraction. Later on, we see some sunbeams that are put to use in a very similar manner. The 3D is wonderful. Comparable to an N-Wave movie. It doesn't merely have pop-outs, it exists in a pop-out most of the time. Now there were, I think I counted 2 shots that were entirely flat, and they did make use of a flat background from time to time, but I found it fairly forgivable in the context of a stereo movie that puts the 3D dial up to 10 most of the time. This design really comes alive early in the movie during a Spider-Man-like chase sequence through rooftops and alleyways. The heights really come alive and make falling feel dangerous. Look at the wonderful detail in this fire escape. Unfortunately, despite demonstrating such potential for action scenes, much of the movie rarely puts it to use. Although it's a great stereo disc with many moments of things popping out, but it often felt like a bit of a slog to get through, despite being only 90 minutes. Story-wise, it just never really gels. What we mostly get is the characters mulling around, explaining themselves in soliloquy after soliloquy, as if it were a play that is limited by the space within the theater. You might find yourself yelling at the screen, "Get back to the running and jumping," and "show, don't tell." The story also happens to be very clunky. It sets up ideas that frequently go nowhere. For example, early on, the daughter, she discovers she has a mental ability, which looks great in 3D. We see these sonic waves ripple out of her eyes, which the stereo really pulls together the environment effect of it all. But it never shows up again. And at another point, we have the family trapped, all chained up, and one of them happens to get free, which the story does nothing with. The character never leaves the room or does anything helpful. Then something unrelated happens that makes it irrelevant. It just felt odd to include that story beat. I mean, many of the scenes are a lot of fun in isolation. They just don't connect to each other in a very satisfying way. But I believe that is because the actions of the family are rarely connected to what happens to them next. They are sort of plucked from one scene and dropped in another with little regard to the choices they make. The family never seems to work together to any great extent. Compare this to something like Toy Story, where working together is kind of how the gang build their sense of belonging and family. Good stories have different kinds of people driving each other nuts. But in this movie, they tended to keep each character in their own little bubble. When they talk, it feels like they're talking to themselves. There's something very unsatisfying about isolation. Although Happy Family is the perfect setup for a rich ensemble story. Driving each other nuts is, in fact, the premise. But the story just doesn't feel like it uses it, which is both odd and too bad, because the premise of a family fending off a homewrecker is kind of unique. It speaks to having needs that may be part of life, but who we are is ultimately defined by how we choose to meet those needs. If it wasn't for the Halloween costumes, this could have been mistaken for a church-produced Sunday school lesson. Well, I'm happy I didn't spend a fortune on this. And again, a big thank you to 3D Jazz Sonic for sending this to me. If you haven't already, check out his channel where he posts terrific 3D appreciation videos in stereo. Link is in the description.
Mr. Fun, I will get you the Blu-ray. Do not pay the ransom for Happy Family. I will find a copy of Happy Family. I will bring it to you.